civilian target, we'll say, by Ukraine.
So, David, let's look at another target, and this time one which is undersea.
Yes, so we go to the Baltic, the Western Baltic, near the coast of Denmark, Germany, and Sweden. There is a very strange site in the middle of the sea where gas is bubbling to the surface, and this is, of course, methane from the Russian gas pipeline. And Radek Sikorski, who is MEP, Vice President of the EU UK Friendship Group and Chairman of the EU USA delegation, and incidentally husband of the Integrity Initiative's favourite Anne Applebaum, he says, thank you, USA.
Indeed he does, so, which brings us on to, let's look at how the Express covered this. Nord Stream 1 and 2 mapped. Why are Russian-built pipelines leaking? Countries affected?
Yes, so experts suspect the 3 punctures in 2 pipelines may have been the result of sabotage. You think? Okay. Nord Stream 1 and 2 are 2 sections of the same pipeline deliver gas from Russia to Western Europe. Danish Energy Agency confirmed that the network can sustain 3 puncture holes this afternoon. Bjorn Lund's lecturer in seismology at the Swedish National Seismic Network confirmed explosions had occurred. So, explosions have occurred. A well-connected gentleman says, thank you, USA. So who's to blame? Well, clearly, it's Putin. The Telegraph here says, they're quite clear, Putin accused of sabotage over Nord Stream gas pipeline explosions. The ships are warned to stay away from a 5-mile exclusion zone. Prime Minister of Poland said, today we faced an act of sabotage. We don't know all the details of what happened, but we see clearly it's an act of sabotage related to the next step in escalation of the situation in the Ukraine. The New York Times is equally sure. Your Wednesday briefing, Russia suspected of pipeline sabotage. Context, the pipelines have been a focal point of a broader confrontation between Russia and Europe after the EU imposed economic sanctions. Russia began withholding its natural gas, threatening the continent's energy supply. Analysis of the leaks underscored the vulnerability of Europe's energy infrastructure, even as the continent tries to wean itself off supplies from Russia. Offshore gas fields in the Mediterranean near Israel could offer a solution. Isn't that interesting? They're also, those gas fields are also near Lebanon. More on that story another week. What the mainstream media in Britain and America, the Telegraph and the New York Times, are asking you to believe, Mike, is that Putin went to the Western Baltic near Germany to blow up his own pipeline. Do you find that credible?
Oh, absolutely, David.
Yeah, you better qualify that article, because no, we don't find it credible at all. It is not credible. This is clearly the deep state operating here. Putin could have easily turned a valve if he wanted to cause trouble with the.
This is it. Putin's got a valve. He's probably got a button. It's probably not even a valve anymore, Brian. It's a button. He could just stop it. Why on earth would he blow up the pipeline? The greatest bargaining chip, the greatest geopolitical asset he has is that Germany's dependent on Russian gas. Why would he blow up the pipeline? And nobody in the entire Western media, apart from Tucker Carlson, we'll come to him in a moment, seems capable of asking this question. It's astonishing.
Right.
So you have to go...
Sorry, David, perhaps we should just bring Mark in and see whether he finds it believable as a member of the USA.
Definitely not. The energy, as David talked about there, in Putin's hands is his greatest leverage, certainly. And there would be no incentive to do that whatsoever. Imagine the effort it took to install those pipelines and the cost. And so, you have a very deep hole to look down here in terms of sorting out who done it. But, the idea that Russia did it is really absurd. We don't know all the answers, but if you're looking at this through the lens of kind of a James Bond movie plot, you can imagine Israeli, other Western saboteurs perhaps carrying this out. and trying to use it to defame Putin even more.
Well,
so it's just one of those things that we have to study a little bit, but I think we can make at least some preliminary conclusions here. So
well, we might have a couple of answers in a second. But anyway, David, what is Andrew Karibko saying on this?
Good God. Well, you have to go to the blogs and the newsletters to get any reasonable analysis. So he says the Anglo-American Axis benefits from the ecological terrorist attack in the Baltic Sea. This is true. This terrorist attack destroyed any chance of an energy-driven Russian-German rapprochement, immediately catapulted Poland into the position of being one of the continent's most pivotal energy hubs, and thus took the Anglo-American Axis plans for dividing and ruling Europe to the next level. These are at least reasonable points, points worth considering. He continues, unprecedented damage to the pipeline was an act of sabotage, as Denmark, Germany, Poland, and Russia all suspect, although no one can agree who carried it out. Kiev blamed Russia in a remix of earlier conspiracy theory alleging that Russia regularly bombs the nuclear power plant that's also under its control. This ridiculous scenario can therefore reasonably be ruled out, especially since Moscow could just keep the tap turned off for technical reasons without risking getting caught sabotaging its own pipelines in NATO-controlled waters. This seems to me a devastating point. And he concludes, sabotaging the pipelines accomplishes precisely that by completely disincentivizing Germany from potentially clinging to whatever energy-driven plans it might have for eventually repairing relations with Russia. With that scenario confidently discounted after Monday night's ecological terrorist attack in the Baltic Sea, which also served the purpose of making Poland amongst the continent's most pivotal energy hubs, Germany might also figure that it doesn't have anything more to lose vis-a-vis Russia by possibly being the first country to send cutting-edge battle tanks to Kiev. The artificially manufactured strategic inertia would thus doom Russian-German relations for a decade. Now, you might argue with one or two of the details there, but broadly, that's a rational analysis of what went down here. And you then see what some American politicians have been saying about it, and it's the case gets even stronger.
Yeah, well, let's hold on one second, because before we get to that, because you covered the Telegraph, I think it was, in the New York Times, two relatively serious newspapers and their coverage. Let's have a look at what the Sun did this morning. Black Ops, how divers from Putin's Special Ops Sabotage Unit could have blown up Nord Stream gas pipeline right under NATO's noses. They did it right under NATO's noses. So let's have a look at the special infographic that they provided. How Putin's Special Ops Sabotage Unit could have blown up Nord Stream gas pipeline right under NATO's noses with a disguised Special Ops ship. Brian, there you go, a fishing boat. Option 1, Russian Navy frogmen. Divers descend to plant explosives. Option 2, a drone submarine sets explosives remotely. If they had a drone submarine, why do they need the little specially disguised ship?
Well, I'm just going to say a little later, we're going to talk about police visits as a result of spreading hate speech and misinformation. I think the Sun should get a visit, because this is disgraceful. This is just disgraceful
Okay,
stuff.
well, let's put it back on. So Nord Stream depth 260 to 360 feet. And they say that the mines were placed on pipeline with a remote trigger.
Well, they're hardly going to light a fuse and sort of swim away, are
Exactly.
they? But,
right. So anyway, but let's be a bit more realistic about this. Now, Mark has suggested one potential. Let's have a look at another. Now, just remember that in June this year, Baltops 22 was in exactly that area. This is the premier Baltic Sea maritime exercise. It's a NATO exercise. And as Sea Power was reporting here, one of the things that they were doing during the Baltops 22 exercise was to practice with unmanned underwater vehicles. In fact, it was mine discovery. It was the thing. So my question is, and it's only a question, I'm not making any allegations, I'm just asking, is it a coincidence that they were there with this particular type of equipment at the time, and were they perhaps using it as a cover, maybe to lay a couple of mines while they were there? I'm not saying they were, but here's another thing. Here is USS Kearsarge. Now this is, how do we describe this ship, Brian?
Well, I'd call it a landing dock ship, because the key thing is it's got the facility for smaller vessels to come inside it.
Right. Now, this particular ship has been in that region for the last 2 weeks, and it has been flying its helicopters around exactly this area. But as you can see, it has what they call it a well deck.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to launch some unmanned underwater vehicles, for example, you could do that from there.
Very easily, because the whole ship is very big and it's kitted out to do this sort of work. Amongst other things.
So where is USS Kearsarge today? Well, it is off the coast of Cornwall at just an hour or so ago. This is from Maritime Vessel Traffic. It's off the coast of Cornwall, rapidly heading away from the Baltic Sea as fast as it can possibly be. So again, this could just be a coincidence, David. But you, as you mentioned, Tucker Carlson, sent me a little clip that we're going to talk about. We'll talk about in a second, but let's just watch the clip first.
In early February, less than 3 weeks before the war in Ukraine began, Joe Biden suggested on camera that he might take out these pipelines. Watch.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do that.
So, David, this is all very circumstantial, but, and I think the but is with massive capital letters.
This is an example, Mike, of why you're an outrageous conspiracy theorist, right? You have American-controlled waters, you have American ships in the area leaving the scene, you have the American president saying that he's going to do just the thing that's happened, and you put these things together and you come up with this ridiculous conspiracy theory where everybody knows that actually the truth is that Putin blew up his own pipeline, traveling the length of the Baltic to do it in a fishing boat with frogmen. And if you look at the Sun's article, the frogmen have got machine guns. That makes them very dangerous. With frogmen in 360 to 260 feet of water, which would make it very difficult for frogmen, but also very difficult for submarines and submersibles, because in such shallow waters, they're quite likely to get spotted. So he picks the hardest point in the entire world to blow up his own pipeline, where he can just push a button and turn the flow off, in order to I've got nothing.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, Mike, you might have a point.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, I'm bursting at the seams here. Yeah, this is all very interesting. Good job putting this together to at least show a trail of circumstantial evidence where the dots can be reasonably connected. I think we've got something here that is going to be far above other alternative news and certainly above the mass media cartel in terms of what they're reporting, something credible. It's interesting, too, you showed that election a little while ago where it had all the hallmarks of an honest election, clear, transparent ballot boxes, everything transparent, the ballots going into the boxes, the count being done locally and in the open. Those are all the hallmarks of an honest election, and that was targeted too. So if I want to expand the conspiracy theory that David's talking about, they target both the gas pipelines and a little bit belatedly, they target that election location. So
yes, but Mark, as I say, they were targeting that all the way through the process. It was only the fact they had missile defense systems in place that they didn't achieve their target.
Yeah, so if we want to be the ultimate tinfoil hat wearing guys, we can say, maybe Biden had a hand directly or indirectly in both those events. But I digress because I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist and get labeled that way. So, but yeah, this is very good. I think this is going to be about the best report people are going to see that at least gives some idea on what could have happened. So, yeah. Very good.
Thank you.
I think more will come to the surface. Apologies for the pun.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that we are going to start learning a lot more about what happened here, because this thing appears at least now to be so blatant.
Yes. Okay. If you like what the UK Column does and you would like to support us, then please head over to community.ukcolumn.org and your members should be very welcome. Or pick something up at the UK Column shop. But in the meantime,